The emergency transmission cut through command like a blade. "We're not alone. It's inside. It's ins." Then silence. No static. No signal degradation. Just a clean surgical cut. As if something intelligent had wanted to make sure the message ended exactly there. They triangulated the source. Outpost Theta 7. Perched on the ice-locked exoplanet Vorn 7, it was humanity's most remote early warning relay. A lifeless place, buried in snow, wind, and darkness. Standard protocol. Deploy a recon squad, but within 5 minutes, all 12 members of the elite response team went dark. No firefights, no final screams, just 12 icons blinking red. Then Black Command wrote them all off. Presumed KIA, unknown threat. Quarantine the zone. End of file except. One green blip kept pulsing, CPL. Darren Holt. Darren Holt never signed up to be a hero. He repaired sensors, recalibrated frozen wires, cleaned ice from ventilation fins. His fingers had more calluses from frostbite than firearms. But today, he was the last human alive on Vorn 7, and he didn't know why. The wind howled outside the narrow outpost walls, battering the reinforced. Steel like it was cardboard. The heating core had failed hours ago, turning the halls into a freezer. He wore 3 layers of thermal gear, teeth chattering, breath steaming as he stared at the flickering console. 12 life signs, gone. One remained. His own. That fact alone should have comforted him. But it didn't, because something else was moving. Not on the monitors. Those were dead. Not on the motion sensors, ripped from their brackets. He could feel it. In the walls, in the stillness, like a storm building just beyond his peripheral vision. Darren locked the security door and backed into the comms room, plasma cutter in one hand, half-charged flare in the other. He wasn't trained for this. But instinct was screaming louder than any manual. He passed the mess hall, dark, blood smeared across the table, not splattered, dragged. He stepped over a dropped helmet. It had a hole in it the size of a fist, burned, clean through the back. He didn't look inside. Clang, he froze. That wasn't the wind. That was inside. One deck down. Slowly, carefully, he crept toward the stairs, flashlight trembling in his hand. He peered down and saw the bodies, piled like discarded luggage. Some were in armor, some were missing pieces. All were dead. Except for one thing, no blood, no bullet wounds, no signs of conventional weapons. They weren't killed, they were harvested. Then he heard it, not a growl. Not a screech, a click, like bone-tapping metal, followed by another and another, getting closer. He ran, back up the stairs, boots slipping on frost. He slammed the emergency bulkhead behind him, locking it down, chest heaving, hands shaking. He was alone, or so he thought. The monitor buzzed. One of the dead consoles lit up, flickering to life. Lines of alien script scrolled across it, auto-translating in real time. Survivor detected. Evaluation in progress. Do not escape. You are the test. The power grid flared. Lights snapped on. Doors unlocked. Darren took a step back, eyes wide. The outpost wasn't a base anymore. It was an arena, and he wasn't being hunted by accident. This thing, whatever it was, had let him live. It had wanted a survivor, not for mercy, but for sport. He looked down at the plasma cutter in his hand. Barely enough to cut metal, useless against whatever left scorch marks down the walls. Then he looked up. Security cam feed, camera 6, showed a shadow. Massive, upright, moving fast, heading for him. His voice cracked as he whispered to himself, "You should have died with the rest." But something in him stirred, not fear, not yet, a spark, a challenge, something primal that every human inherited through 1,000 wars of survival. If it wanted a test, fine. It just picked the wrong species. The floor groaned beneath his boots. Then it moved. Not like a quake or ice settling. No, this movement was deliberate, slow, rhythmic, like breathing. Something was down there. Darren froze. The flickering security feed behind him blinked red. Camera. 3 offline. Camera 4, offline, camera 5, static, camera 6, motion detected, and then the floor vibrated again, this time with a low crack. The metal beneath his boots creaked. He jumped back just in time as a section of grated flooring buckled inward, like something had crawled underneath and pushed up. Just enough to say hello. He didn't wait for a second message. He ran. He found refuge in the weapon vault, or what was left of it. Every rifle was either fried, stripped, or missing. The blast door had been pried open, not blown, pried, with strength that no human could match. The only thing left was an old plasma welder, a broken visor helmet, and a half-charged kinetic pulse pistol. He grabbed them anyway. Then he saw it. Helmet. Different from the others. Smooth, curved, non-human. Burnished black metal with etched silver markings. It wasn't in a crate. It was placed, displayed, on a rack like a trophy. He didn't know what disturbed him more, that the creature had brought its own armor here, or that it was confident enough to leave it behind. He turned it over. Inside the visor, dried blood. Human. His pulse spiked. He stumbled back and kicked something under the workbench, a hand, severed, frozen stiff, still clutching a dog tag, LT, R. Suarez zone of the recon squad. But Suarez had been a commando, special forces, hand-to-hand certified, tactical genius. Dead. Darren looked closer. The hand wasn't cut off. It was twisted off, and there were bite marks. He swallowed hard. Every instinct told him to run, to curl up, to wait for it to end. But then the lights flickered again, dim, low, red, not failure, not a glitch, a change. The entire outpost had just switched to observation mode. A voice crackled through the broken intercom. But it wasn't human, not a voice at all. Really, more like a distorted mimic, copying syllables, warping them, piecing together a sentence from memory. You, stay, we, watch, worthy, rises. He stepped into the hallway, weapon raised. The air was colder now, not just from the failing heat. It was colder where it passed. He followed the frost to the body chute, a shaft used for ejecting bio-waste, usually sealed. It was open and empty. Darren climbed down the narrow maintenance ladder, heart pounding, every step echoing into the darkness. The shaft curved, then opened into something not on the blueprints. A tunnel. Rough, chiseled, handmade, or claw-made. He crept inside. The tunnel descended deeper into the glacier. As he moved, the walls shifted, from frozen rock to a bizarre fusion of steel and bone. And then he saw them. Rows of skulls, dozens, maybe hundreds, human, alien, each marked with symbols, scorched into bone. Most crossed out, some shattered, but one stood alone. Human. Not crossed out, not cracked, just waiting. That's when he heard it again, the clicking. Not behind him, above him. It was in the ceiling. He spun, firing a pulse blindly. Blue light lit the tunnel. It hit nothing, just silence. Then something dropped into view. Not the creature. Its shadow. 9 feet tall. Arms like spears. A head crowned in jagged bone. It stood just outside the range of the emergency light, watching. Darren raised the gun, finger trembling. And the shadow backed away. Not because it was afraid, because the test wasn't over yet, because it wanted more. Back at the surface, the security feed flickered again. On the monitor, a thermal signature. 1 human. 1. Other. The alien had a heartbeat. It was cold, but not dead, and Darren. He was still moving, still thinking, still dangerous. The floor groaned beneath his boots. Then it moved, not like a quake or ice settling. No, this movement was deliberate, slow, rhythmic, like breathing. Something was down there. Darren froze. The flickering security feed behind him blinked red. Camera 3, offline. Camera 4, offline. Camera 5, static. Camera 6, motion detected. And then, the floor vibrated again, this time with a low crack. The metal beneath his boots creaked. He jumped back just in time as a section of grated flooring buckled inward, like something had crawled underneath and pushed up, just enough to say hello. He didn't wait for a second message. He ran. He found refuge in the weapon vault, or what was left of it. Every rifle was either fried, stripped, or missing. The blast door had been pried open, not blown. Pried, with strength that no human could match. The only thing left was an old plasma welder, a broken visor helmet, and a half-charged kinetic pulse pistol. He grabbed them anyway. Then he saw it. Helmet. Different from the others. Smooth, curved, non-human. Burnished black metal with etched silver markings. It wasn't in a crate. It was placed, displayed, on a rack like a trophy. He didn't know what disturbed him more, that the creature had brought its own armor here, or that it was confident enough to leave it behind. He turned it over. Inside the visor, dried blood. Human. His pulse spiked. He stumbled back and kicked something under the workbench, a hand, severed, frozen stiff, still clutching a dog tag, LT, R. Suarez zone of the recon squad. But Suarez had been a commando, special forces, hand-to-hand certified, tactical genius. Dead. Darren looked closer. The hand wasn't cut off. It was twisted off, and there were bite marks. He swallowed hard. Every instinct told him to run, to curl up, to wait for it to end. But then the lights flickered again, dim, low, red, not failure, not a glitch, a change. The entire outpost had just switched to observation mode. A voice crackled through the broken intercom. But it wasn't human, not a voice at all. Really, more like a distorted mimic, copying syllables, warping them, piecing together a sentence from memory. You, stay, we, watch, worthy, rises. He stepped into the hallway, weapon raised. The air was colder now, not just from the failing heat. It was colder where it passed. He followed the frost to the body chute, a shaft used for ejecting bio-waste, usually sealed. It was open and empty. Darren climbed down the narrow maintenance ladder, heart pounding, every step echoing into the darkness. The shaft curved, then opened into something not on the blueprints. A tunnel. Rough, chiseled, handmade, or claw-made. He crept inside. The tunnel descended deeper into the glacier. As he moved, the walls shifted, from frozen rock to a bizarre fusion of steel and bone. And then he saw them. Rows of skulls, dozens, maybe hundreds, human, alien, each marked with symbols, scorched into bone. Most crossed out, some shattered, but one stood alone. Human. Not crossed out, not cracked, just waiting. That's when he heard it again, the clicking. Not behind him, above him. It was in the ceiling. He spun, firing a pulse blindly. Blue light lit the tunnel. It hit nothing, just silence. Then something dropped into view. Not the creature. Its shadow. 9 feet tall. Arms like spears. A head crowned in jagged bone. It stood just outside the range of the emergency light, watching. Darren raised the gun, finger trembling, and the shadow backed away. Not because it was afraid, because the test wasn't over yet, because it wanted more. Back at the surface, the security feed flickered again. On the monitor, a thermal signature. One human. One. Other. The alien had a heartbeat. It was cold, but not dead. And Darren, he was still moving, still thinking, still dangerous. It didn't come through the door. It walked through the wall. Steel warped like tinfoil. Reinforced composite screamed as it bent inward. Then silence. Not a crash, not a roar. Just the groan of structural failure. And a slow, deliberate tearing of metal. Darren stared at the control room's wall as it bowed and cracked, frost bleeding from the edges. He didn't breathe, didn't blink, just gripped the pistol tighter. Then, the wall parted. Not shattered, not broken, opened and through. It stepped death. 9 feet tall, shoulders wider than a bulkhead. Its skin was matte obsidian, streaked with bone-white patterns carved directly into its flesh. Its head was elongated, armored in natural plating like a living war mask. In one hand, it carried nothing. It didn't need a weapon. Its eyes, too. Vertical slits glowing deep orange, locked on Darren, and for the first time, it didn't attack. It watched. The alien stepped into the light, completely silent, breathing fog through an armored rebreather that pulsed against its chest like a living drum. Behind it, the wall slowly sealed back, folding itself shut with chilling precision, like it had never been there at all. Darren didn't run. Couldn't. His legs felt bolted to the deck. Every cell in his body screamed for flight, but something primal inside him refused. Something older than fear. The creature tilted its head, studying him, evaluating. It tapped a device on its forearm, and the control panel behind Darren sparked, activating an overhead holographic projection. Dozens of species appeared in rotating display, each marked with glowing alien script. Some were insectoid, some humanoid. Some Darren had never seen before. Every one of them was marked with a red X. And then, Earth, humanity, unmarked. Untested, until now. The alien's voice came through. The translation matrix. Low, garbled, like thunder dragging gravel. Last of kind. Not run, not scream. It took a single step forward. Darren aimed the pistol, trembling. Watch death. Now show life. It slammed its fist into its chest. Boom, a challenge. The lights flickered. The hologram disappeared. Then it turned and vanished. Just like that. Darren collapsed against the wall, gasping, the adrenaline crash hitting like a truck. Why hadn't it killed him? Why wait? Then it hit him. It wasn't done. It was preparing. This wasn't a predator looking for food. It was a judge. And the outpost wasn't a battleground. It was a trial. He stumbled to the terminal, hands shaking as he rebooted power to the comm logs. The alien's interface had left traces, encrypted code buried beneath layers of alien syntax. The translation program kicked in. Species, Homo sapiens. Status, unproven. Trial parameters initiated. Below it, a timer, counting down. 00957. 000956. 10 minutes. 10 minutes until the hunt began. Darren backed away, breath fogging the glass. The game hadn't started yet. But it would, and this time, it would be watching for something more than fear. It wanted to see what a human could do when it knew death was coming. He moved fast, back to the machine shop, grabbed coolant tanks, wiring, thermite adhesive. He set up tripwires, used broken panels as mirrors, rerouted a ventilation pipe to pour steam through the hallway for cover. He dropped bait. Food rations, audio pings, anything to confuse its senses. If this thing respected strength, then he'd give it a damn show. He scrawled a message on the wall in black marker. Not pray. Then he waited in the dark, kneeling, silent, listening. And when the timer hit 0, the walls shook, a roar tore through the corridor, deep and layered, like it came from a throat evolved in vacuum. And then, footsteps, slow, heavy, confident. It didn't need to sneak because the apex doesn't knock. It comes to see what you'll do when it enters your home, uninvited. The first trap didn't kill it. It just made it angry enough to bleed. The corridor filled with mist. Steam hissed from ruptured vents, turning steel walls into ghostly silhouettes. Somewhere beyond the fog, heavy footsteps echoed, measured, patient, not hunting, advancing. Darren crouched behind an overturned locker, heart thundering in his ears. In his hand, a crude detonator, wired to 2 coolant tanks rigged with thermite. A gamble. But he only needed it to hesitate. He heard the creature's breathing before he saw it. Slow, almost relaxed. Like it knew nothing on this planet could harm it. Darren pressed the trigger. Foam! The corridor ignited. Ice vapor exploded into fire. The blast ripped through the hallway with a high-pitched shriek, flame and shrapnel shredding everything in a 5-meter radius. Silence followed, just steam, and the faint crackle of cooling metal. He waited. 1 second. 2. Then, movement. The shape emerged from the fire. Burnt, staggered, bleeding. Thick black ichor dripped from a crack along its left shoulder, sizzling against the floor. It stopped, looked down at the wound, then slowly laughed. A guttural, resonant sound like gravel grinding against thunder. The creature's bioluminescent eyes flared. It raised one clawed hand and tapped the wound. First time, it growled. First time, bleed. And then it charged. Darren barely rolled aside as claws slashed through the locker, cleaving metal like butter. Sparks showered down. He scrambled down a side hallway, slammed a maintenance hatch shut behind him, and bolted the lock, just in time for the alien's fist to dent the steel from the other side. It wasn't mindless. It was enraged. And now, it respected him. Worse, now it wanted him alive. In the ventilation shaft, Darren crawled on elbows and knees, heart hammering. His breath came in short bursts. His skin stung from the explosion. The pulse pistol was down to 8% charge. Not enough. But he had something better. Fear. It's fear. He'd made it bleed. He could do it again. He reached the comms relay access node, rewired its output to a strobe frequency. If the creature relied on thermal and sound, then let's give it something louder. He lit every hallway with pulsing flashes. Sound emitters screamed with garbled noise, screeching human voices, static. And one repeated phrase, not pray, not pray, not pray, let it feel what confusion tasted like. He laid another trap, this time a pressure charge behind a false panel, then waited again, breathing, calculating. It didn't take long. A crash, a wall somewhere distant caved in, the sound of claws scraping metal, then silence. Too much silence. Darren stood, turned, and it was behind him. It had dropped from the ceiling like a shadow with weight. One hand snatched Darren by the neck, lifting him off the ground. Worthy, it said again. The alien's other hand, raised, glowing with retractable bone blades, serrated and humming with some dark energy. Darren gagged, gasping, legs kicking. Then he jammed the flare, lit, into the alien's damaged shoulder. Zra! It roared in fury, dropping him. The flare stuck, burning into its muscle. Darren hit the ground hard, rolled, pulled the pulse pistol, and fired point blank into the wound. The creature convulsed. Its blood sprayed across the walls. It screamed, Not in rage, in pain. It stumbled backward, bleeding, confused. And for the first time, uncertain, Darren dragged himself upright, chest heaving, face streaked with ash and blood. "Yeah," he coughed. "Not so tough when you're leaking, are you?" The alien locked eyes with him again. This time, its breathing was heavy, labored. It looked down at the smoldering wound, then back up at him. And slowly, deliberately, it nodded, then vanished into the mist. Not fled. Retreated. Darren collapsed to his knees, still alive, still in the fight. And somewhere in a part of his mind he hadn't known existed, something ignited. If it bleeds, it can die. The creature dropped its weapon at his feet. Then it looked up and said, in perfect English, "Now fight me as a species." Darren stared, barely able to stand. His hands trembled, not from fear anymore, but from exhaustion. His body screamed with bruises. His chest still burned from where the alien's claws had lifted him like a rag doll. And now, the thing just stood there, unarmed, motionless, waiting. Behind it, the snowstorm raged through the shattered hull of the outpost. White flakes danced like ash in the red glow of the emergency lights. The corridor had been torn open, part cave, part ruin, exposed to the elements. But the cold didn't seem to touch it. The creature held up a long black blade, curved, alien, humming softly, and drove it into the ice floor. The gesture was deliberate, a surrender of weapons. "Enough hiding," it said. The voice was clear, this time. Not through mimicry, not through translation. It spoke. The accent was off, the cadence strange but unmistakable. "We hunt worlds. We judge. You last alive. You fight, not to live. You fight to prove." It struck its chest again, sending out a low-frequency boom. A challenge. One life, one trial, one right to survive. You win, I leave. You lose, Earth falls. Darren blinked snow from his eyes. "Trial?" he rasped. "What the hell are you talking about?" The creature gestured to the sky. Through the cracked ceiling, pinpricks of light shimmered. Then, movement, ships, dozens, hundreds, cloaked against the void, watching. "You bleed me. First two." "Do so. Now we watch if you bleed. With honor." Darren felt something sink into his chest. The weight of it, of the moment. This wasn't about the outpost anymore. It never had been. This was how their species made war. One chosen, one duel, and the fate of a world balanced on grit alone. He dropped his pulse pistol into the snow, took a deep breath, and nodded. "Fine. Trial accepted." The alien stepped back, flexing clawed hands. Its body seemed to vibrate, preparing. This wasn't posturing. It was tradition, ritual, sacred. It didn't lunge. Not at first. Instead, it circled him. Footprints burning into the frost. Darren mirrored it, knees low, palms open. Every lesson from basic hand-to-hand training flooded back, useless and ancient. But he had instincts now. He'd survived this. Long. Trapped it. Bled it. And if it wanted to test humanity, it would see the ugliest part. The refusal to die. The alien struck first, a blur, claws slashing left, then spinning low. Darren ducked under the first, twisted with the second, caught. The third with a bent pipe he'd pulled from the wall and snapped it between them. Metal clanged against bone. Sparks flew. Darren moved like a man on fire. Not because he was faster, not stronger, but because every second of hesitation would kill him. He struck the alien's ribs, barely a dent, then its knee, nothing, then its eye. A glancing hit that made it snarl. It grabbed him and hurled him against a beam. Pain shot up his spine. Vision blurred, but he rose, bleeding, smiling. "That all you got?" The alien stepped closer, tilting its head, almost impressed. "You..." "Different." It lunged again, but slower, testing, honoring. The fight shifted. No longer predator versus prey. Now it was ritual. They grappled in the snow, punching, slamming, clawing. Darren bit down on his own scream as pain tore through his shoulder. He headbutted the creature. It staggered. He drove an elbow into its throat. It roared, not in rage, in approval. Blood mixed with snow. Steam rose from both of them. Hands shook. Breathing hitched. Until finally, both stepped back. Staring. Equal distance. Equal fury. Not prey. Not monster. Just two warriors in the storm. His ribs were cracked. His right arm hung useless. He couldn't see out of one eye, and still. He charged. The alien reared back, blood steaming from its throat where Darren had landed the headbutt. Its breath came in short, heated bursts, each, one fogging the frozen air between them like a furnace venting pressure. Darren barely stayed upright. His right shoulder was dislocated. His pulse was ragged. The skin above his left brow had split open, pouring blood into his eye. He could barely see, could barely breathe, couldn't lift his arm. But he didn't back down, because backing down wasn't in his nature. Not any human's. Nature. The creature circled him slowly now, not with confidence, but respect. This duel had changed. The trial wasn't about domination anymore. It was about endurance. Pain versus will. Muscle versus meaning. The alien stopped. Raised one blood-slicked claw. Yield, fight is over. You survive. Darren spit blood and smiled. Not enough. He sprinted forward with everything he had left. His legs were jelly. His lungs burned like fire. His left hand clutched a shard of shattered armor, razor sharp. The alien swung low, trying to sweep his legs. Darren leapt over it. Impossible. Even the creature flinched in surprise, just long enough for Darren to drive the shard into the soft meat just beneath its chin. Chunk. It screamed, a raw, guttural noise that shattered the ice coating the walls. Black ichor sprayed, steaming, sizzling against steel. The alien slammed him backward, cracking his ribs again. Darren hit the ground, vision going black at the edges, but he watched. It was bleeding. Badly. Staggering. It dropped to one knee, and for a moment, it just stared at him. Then, laughed again. This time, not a predator's laugh. Something older, something deeper. It stood, wobbling, and gave a slow, deliberate nod. Human, fights, even broken, even alone. You refuse death. Darren crawled to one elbow, choking, grinning through the blood in his teeth. You're damn right I do. The creature looked up. Through the cracked ceiling, the alien ships shimmered, still watching, judging, waiting for the outcome. The alien turned back to Darren, took a deep breath, and drove its own claws into its chest, drawing more black blood. Show of equality. A ritual wound. Then it knelt. The battle was over. And Darren had won. He lay on the floor, gasping, every part of his body screaming in agony. The creature knelt before him, blood pooling around it, staining the snow black. Then, using the last of its strength, it tapped its chest once more. And then tapped his. Warrior, it said, and collapsed. Gone. Outside, the storm cleared. The sky shimmered with light. Alien ships blinked. Then began to fade from view one by one, not attacking, not retaliating, just leaving. A message appeared on the shattered hollow panel inside the command room. Earth, status changed. Category, not prey. Result, warrior class confirmed, trial complete. Darren watched it through half-lidded eyes and smiled. Not for the victory, but for what it meant, for everyone. Minutes, or maybe hours, passed before he crawled toward the communications panel, dragging his ruined leg behind him. He hit the distress beacon with a bloody palm. The signal lit up the void. To command trial complete. Send a retrieval team, 1 survivor. Planet secure. Target bled. He leaned against the wall, laughing softly, then passed out. When the stars stopped blinking, the galaxy held its breath. Darren woke to silence, not the heavy hum of the outpost, not the constant scrape of ice against metal, just quiet. His body felt like it had been hit by a freight train. His limbs were stiff, broken in places he hadn't realized were hurt. But the silence, thin and sharp, felt like a promise. He reached out blindly, and a warm hand closed over his. A soft voice said, "You're alive." Through blurry eyes, he saw her. Commander. Lyra Voss, leader of the retrieval team, face etched with concern and awe. Mission Control is broadcasting. "You made it through the trial. The galaxy heard you." Outside the window, the sky was alive. Hundreds of ships, once cloaked and hidden, now fully visible in orbit around Earth. Their war banners and insignia shone bright, but none dared to descend. Galaxy-wide silence had fallen, a silence born of reverence, fear, and respect. For Darren had changed the rules. His fight had become a message. Earth wasn't prey. Earth was a warrior. In the command center, the team watched a streaming holofeed from the Alien Council's ship, the alien warrior who had challenged. Darren now sat in a throne-like chair, surrounded by elders and judges, massive beings whose ages and races spanned light years. The warrior's voice echoed through the feed. He bled, he fought, not like a cornered animal, but a warrior. Earth is no longer a target. Earth has earned its place. The room fell silent. The Alien Council's verdict was unanimous. Earth was now classified as a warrior-class planet. The ramifications hit everyone hard. Galactic trade routes would open, but with honor and treaties. No more raids, no more ambushes. Because the galaxy now knew, if you come to Earth, you come to fight, and you might just bleed first. Back in his med bay, Darren's mind raced. He'd stared death in the face, but more than that, he'd stared the galaxy in the eye and made it see humanity, not as prey, not as weak, but as worthy. He thought of all those who had fought before him, the forgotten soldiers, the explorers lost to dark space, the civilizations erased by hubris. His fight was for them, for Earth, for every person who dared to stand tall against impossible odds. Suddenly, the medbay doors hissed open. A senior officer stepped in, eyes sharp but respectful. "Darren Reeve, you. Just change the course of history. We're putting you in command of Earth's defense program. The galaxy will watch you now." Darren nodded, exhausted but resolute. His fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. Outside, the stars twinkled, silent witnesses to a new era. A reminder that sometimes one man's refusal to fall can echo across the cosmos. That sometimes one drop of blood can change the fate of a world. The galaxy expected Earth to kneel. Instead, it stood. And now they remember the man who made the stars watch. The ceremony took place on the lunar surface, a place no longer just for research and relay stations, but now the Sentinel Summit, the diplomatic and military heart of Earth's presence in space. Darren Reeves stood before a crowd of thousands, diplomats, fleet officers, soldiers, alien envoys, even representatives from the warrior species that once tried to judge Earth as prey. Now they stood with heads bowed. At the center of it all, Darren, the man who faced death alone, and made it bleed. As he stepped forward to speak, silence rippled outward. No music, no fanfare, just his voice. "I wasn't chosen to represent Earth. I wasn't trained for what I faced. Hell, I barely survived. But when they came to judge us, I didn't fight for a title. I fought because someone had to. Now the galaxy watches us with new eyes, not as prey, not as invaders, as equals, as warriors. The audience was still. Then a slow, deliberate sound echoed through the lunar chamber. A single thump, then another. Across the room, alien warriors pounded their chests, one by one, honoring him. The trial of one had become legend, and Darren Reeve had become its symbol. Later, high above in Earth's new orbital defense station, Darren looked out across the dark. The stars no longer looked indifferent. Now they watched him back. Behind him, Commander Lyra Voss approached with a datapad. "New reports from the edge of explored space," she said. "A faction's moving. Not friendly." He took the pad, eyes narrowing. "Do they know about the trial?" She nodded. "They know. But they don't believe it." He handed the pad back and cracked his knuckles. "Then we'll remind them." In the months that followed, Earth's warriors trained under a new banner, not just for defense, but as guardians of balance in a galaxy that respected only strength backed by meaning. Reeve wasn't a conqueror. He wasn't interested in power. He was building something else. A legacy. One where Earth wouldn't just survive, it would lead. Back on the frozen outpost where it all began, a statue stood in the snow, half buried, half defiant. It was him, not standing tall. Not triumphant, but mid-charge, bruised, bloodied, one arm limp, eyes wild. The plaque beneath it read, "Here stood one man, against one warrior, for one planet," and that was enough. Tourists visited, soldiers saluted, aliens studied, and somewhere, out there in the dark, ancient species whispered, "Earth? That's where the bleeding began." Epilogue. Some say Darren Reeve retired, others say he vanished. A few believe he walks the outer world still, not as a soldier, but as a warning. Myth in the making, a reminder that when the galaxy came to test Earth, we bled. But so did they.